The following is a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific. Yeah! It's Cartoonerific.
Well, welcome to the Cartoonerific podcast. I am Brian Mitchell, and I am your host as always. On today's show, I don't know if you listened last week, but MICHEL GAGNE is on, and he was on to do a wonderful interview last week, and of course we're going to continue that this week. This is the second part of a two-part interview, and so I hope everybody out there is enjoying it. I get to, from time to time, people will email me or I'll get a text message or something, and people will say, I'm really enjoying the show, and, it's really nice to hear. And we don't hear from too many of you. A lot of you listen in and you enjoy the podcast, but we don't hear any feedback. Honestly, I would love to hear it, especially if it's positive. And if there's negative feedback, if it's constructive, I'd be very happy to hear that too. But like I said, and I've said this before, I really enjoy doing these podcasts. I learn a lot from these podcasts. I've said that before as well. It seems like I'm a broken record. I don't know. We have some really wonderful guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, so I hope you come back for that. And we have a whole backlog of wonderful episodes that you can check out. And we keep stressing, we have a page on Buzzsprout where you can check out all the episodes, or you can go back on YouTube, and all our episodes are up on YouTube now. So please check those out. If you missed one, you might be surprised by, listening to something that you didn't listen to the first time, because maybe the guest wasn't maybe high profile, or maybe they've been working in the industry for a while, but maybe you never heard of them. And it's always good to kind of go back and listen to these people. Some of the most fascinating stories that we've had are from these guests, because they're kind of under the radar. So, kind of check those episodes out too. Some of them are a lot of fun. Anyway, we'll be back with MICHEL GAGNE with that part two. And don't go away.
The Cartoonerific podcast is now available on Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Alexa, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, Player FM, Apple Podcasts, and many, many others. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. A new Cartoonerific podcast is uploaded every Friday. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
What's funny is some of the people that we interview on the podcast, I've known them maybe 30 years ago, and then we come back to them, and they sound exactly the same to me. And what's interesting is the enthusiasm that they had back then, they still have it. And I mean, there's also, people are going through challenges in life too, and you kind of hear that in their voices. But in general, these people sound almost exactly the same. And this guest is the same way. I remember him being very enthusiastic and very positive about a lot of things. And I think when you're positive, I think it goes a long way. I think you get more out of life that way when you think in a positive way. I think he's the example of it. So anyway, here is part two of that interview, and here is MICHEL.
To do a lot of editing.
Well, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think it's rolling along pretty good.
Okay, good.
So you did, okay, so let's just, you're doing a lot of this live action stuff. Mm-hmm. When did you get back into doing...
So while this was happening,
yes,
that's when at night I was pitching to all the studios using my short film, and I was trying to sell Dynamo.
Right.
So that was kind of like all happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Disney that was whining and dining me, and like DreamWorks, just because I had, showed and made contact with all these people. I had showed them my short film. So I ended up going with Warner's, partly because Bill Croyer was going there.
Yeah.
And I had been working with Bill Croyer was part of the beta testing of Animo as well, but he was doing it for a television. I was trying to do it for feature quality, and he was doing for a TV special.
Right.
So we were both kind of experimenting with different pipeline, different techniques. So he was part of that, and I got to know Bill while I was doing my short film.
Yeah.
And I liked him, and so when he went to Warner's, he was going to Warner's. I kind of that was kind of why I made that decision.
Right. So when you went to Warner's, was it for the Iron Giant, or were you working on the other one?
No, it was when I went to Warner's. They came to me and they offered me a contract.
Right.
I was the first FX person to be in the feature animation department.
Wow. And
they had a bunch of movies in development. So I worked on Shangri-La, I worked on Bluebeard, I worked with King Tut. So I was working on all these movies that never saw the light of the day.
Right.
They had New Gods on the board. They had a Jim Carrey fish thing on. I mean, there was so many projects. You would walk in the hallway and they had like all these amazing boards with artwork everywhere. It was super inspiring.
Where was that? Was that over in the...
It's in Sherman Oaks.
That was in the Imperial...
No, actually, it was in Ferndale. When we started, I was in both Sherman Oaks location and Ferndale not Ferndale, Glendale,
California.
Glendale, California. Ferndale is in Washington. It's like a little town here.
Yeah, I was working in Sherman Oaks when I think Tom Jacobsmeyer, who was came over to the feature animation area. Yeah.
Tom is the one who hired me.
Oh wow!
So I knew Tom from Bluth, and Tom was one of the one that was courting me at the time, and I think I went with familiarity because I knew Tom, I knew Bill Croyer, Sue Croyer, so I kind of went with the people that I felt good with. I mean, I could have ended up at either Disney or DreamWorks at the time. I don't know if you remember that period. It was insane. Everybody was hiring and trying to rip everybody.
Oh, everybody was trying to, people were calling you up.
Yeah, and I mean, I signed my contract way too early because I signed a contract, and then I had people that were under me making more money than I was because they were the rate kept going up and up and up. I'm I was locked into this 2-year contract. I'm oh darn it.
Yeah.
So, but it was a crazy time.
It was a crazy time. What happened to me? I've left Bluth. I went to work at Warner Brothers, and I was there for not even a week, and I got a phone call from Disney wanting me to come over, and then I got a call from Rover Dangerfield.
Yeah, I worked on that.
Yeah, and they wanted, so I went over there, and they were showing me around. I think it was just all.
Yeah, I remember doing some snow effects for that, working with Jeff Howard and Katie Quave.
Right. Yep.
So
wow,
so that's
she was at Disney and Bluth, wasn't she? Kathleen?
She was, yes. Yeah. And she worked for me on Swan Princess, and she worked for me on Osmosis Jones.
Wow.
And she was in my department a few times.
Pretty neat. So what was the feature film you were working on at Warner's when they actually went into production?
When I started, I worked on a few, those the 3 that I mentioned before.
Right.
And then Quest for Camelot was the first one to get greenlit.
Right.
So I was on that for maybe 2 years.
Right.
And we had to train a new crew for that because it was really a pretty green crew. So I was kind of in charge of the training program for FX.
Right.
So I got a bunch of interns. I mean, we really there was not enough people to fill in the positions, literally. So we had a whole bunch of art students come and show their portfolio, and I took a bunch of them in the department and
train them.
And some of them did amazing, guys like Ryan Woodward. He's an animation star, and he started I saw his portfolio, and I'm you want to do some effects? He was going to do characters, and come and do some effects with me. Man.
Did he come from Cal Arts, or this just art students?
He's from Utah, so I think he might have been a Berman. What's in the school there? The big art school?
I don't know. It came from the Midwest. Came from the Midwest.
Yeah.
All
So, but other like the guy that I hired, Matt Mainers, who was my assistant. He's just fresh out of school, and I hired him, and now he's the head of 2D effects at Marvel.
Wow.
So,
very neat. Very neat stuff.
A lot of the guys have done pretty good,
Did you like Quest for Camelot? You don't hear too much about it.
No, it was a weird time. It's that movie had just complete lack of focus in a way, But there's kids that have grown in the film. I don't really want to say bad things about it because I thought it was horrible when I saw it, like the rap party.
Right.
But now I have all these kids or these adults now that tell me they've grown up on this movie and they love it, and I don't want to sound like a prick to them and say like their favorite cartoon as a kid.
It's hard. It's really hard because I worked on some of the junk that you worked on at Bluth, which was.
I hardly like any of the movies I've worked on. I would say like I have a pretty low batting average.
It's funny. When we worked on Rockadoodle, it was such an exciting time to be working on that because it was like, oh, it's live action anime. Oh, that sounds really good, and they had some good songs in it. They had some really good songs, and then the opening actually looked halfway decent, and I was like, wow, this could really be something. And then by the time it got to the end, and the film was, because the story was so botched, and then they tried to reverse engineer it and try to make it work, and nothing seemed to work. It became kind of an embarrassment, but there's people out there that really like the movie.
I've had people tell me that's their favorite Bluth movie.
Yeah.
So, it's seriously, and I get it. I get it because some of my favorite movies are like Star Crash. That's considered like one of the worst movies of all time. And I love that movie to death. I've seen it 100 times. And it's like, so I get it. Yeah. I can see how Rockadoodle could have that same kind of appeal, So it's and it's art is subjective. It really is.
Well,
it's
everything,
like,
humor is subjective.
And I like, it doesn't, to me, a film doesn't really have to be good for me to like it.
Right. You may like it you may be holding on to something that you just really.
And sometimes when a film is too good, I don't like it.
Yeah. That can happen too.
so, it's okay. So I have different criteria of why I like stuff. Like books, same thing. Like I will like things that it doesn't have necessarily, it might be critical. I've seen movies that were rated 18 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I love them.
Right.
And I've seen movies that are rated like 100, and I can't stand them.
Yeah.
So it's like, everybody has their own criteria. And it's like,
I have this weird thing for a Disney film called Home on the Range, and I really like the movie. I think there's elements in it that are very, very funny. I think there are things that are really cool. And I've met people that say, God, I hate that film. And it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things.
I've
Sometimes
never seen it, but maybe it's good.
I don't. You may look at it. You may go, Brian, you got a problem.
I don't watch a lot of anime. It's hard for me to watch animation because I always feel like it's work. If I'm watching animation, I almost feel like I'm working.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time, but I have watched more animation now that I have grandkids.
Wow.
And because I'll sit down and I'll watch and I'll go like, wow, this is cool. Like, man, I would never watch this movie. So
you have grandkids?
So, yeah.
It's the thing is that you have such a don't be offended if I use this word. You have a bubbly personality, and some people are like, oh. Yes, you look older than I remember you, but the thing is that you have, you have this spark in you that you still have this excitement for this stuff. And it seems like for life you have. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I was telling my wife, like I said, it's amazing. The job keeps getting better because I told her, I said, this job I have, that's the best job I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Like, that I'm 59 and I just get a new job, and that tops all of them. Seriously, like as far as I'm concerned right now, it's a really, really cool job. So
yeah. I work for Ralph Bakshi. We're going to get back to this, but tell you this brief aside. I worked for Ralph Bakshi for the Mighty Mouse: The New Adventures, which was kind of a TV show, but it kind of helped helped revolutionize the Saturday morning thing. Kind of changed things around.
It had a big impact at the time.
It had a huge impact, and
Chris Belushi started on that, didn't he?
He did, but a lot of people did. There were a lot of Pixar people like Jeff Reardon was working with us, and we had Ken Boyer and Bruce.
I do remember when that was being done.
Bruce Timm was my layout supervisor.
Yeah.
I was doing layouts on it.
Right.
And it was, but anyway, after we completed that season, Ralph wanted me to come back for the second season. But in the meantime, I went back to New York. I was in California, went back to New York, and he had my number. And one day he called me up and he goes, I'm going up to ABC on, Midtown Manhattan. So I said, yeah. He said, why don't you come with me? So I was like, okay. So I met him, I forgot, on one street corner. He pulled up in a beat-up Camaro, and sitting in the car, and we're driving up to ABC, which was around on the, I think off Avenue of the Americas. But anyway, we're having this conversation. He said, I'm like, close to 60, and I feel like a kid. I feel like a kid again, and it was really kind of interesting because he still had that fire. In him. Right. Yeah. He had this kid-like attitude.
I have to keep it because I'm trying to finish a single-handedly animated feature film. So I have to keep the energy for that.
Exactly. How'd you get on, okay, so we're going to get back into this. How'd you get on Iron Giant?
Okay, so this is what happened is I was working at Warner's in 1996. That's when I started. Mm-hmm. And I had, at that point, I had just signed for Quest for Camelot.
Yeah.
And I get a call in my office, and it's Brad Bird on the line.
Wow.
And it's Brad. He says, hey, Michel, I just want to let you know, your friend John Hooper just showed me your short film, Prelude to Eden. And he's like, man, it's like amazing. It's like, dude, I want you to work for me. I'm doing this movie called Ray Gun.
Oh, okay.
And he said, I would love to for you to come and do some effects for me. And I said, hey, Brad, I can't. I just signed a contract for Quest for Camelot. And he's like, oh, Quest for Camelot, it's going to be a piece of shit, man. You don't want to work on that. And, and I'm like, I said, man, sorry, I can't do it. So that was kind of like the first contact. And we ended up that very same day, we ended up going to lunch with a bunch of people at the California Pizza Kitchen in Glendale.
Glendale, yeah.
And that's where I met him in person. So that was kind of like my introduction to Brad.
Right.
So we had a good good rapport from that. And so when I finished Quest for Camelot, Brad asked me, hey, man, you want to join me now on Iron Giant? I'm doing the Iron Giant movie for Warner's. And so I went.
Right.
That's when I decided to go with Brad on that point. And that's when my involvement for Iron Giant. So I was kind of like the first person on Iron Giant in the effects department. So I came in.
Right.
And although I wasn't technically the head of effects because Brad wanted me to be the head of effects, but I had just been doing a Quest for Camelot head of effects for that.
Right.
I was so worn out. I was when I finished Quest for Camelot, I'm never again going to be head of effects on a movie. It was kind of like, that was my attitude. I was like, so done. And then, when Brad was asking me, I said, no, I said, well, can I just be the artistic head of effects? I said, I'll do the art and stuff, and I can go with the storyboards and
you'll design it. You'll design the effects.
And so I ended up being hired a few months before production. So I went over the storyboards and did a bunch of designs for the elements. And then, and when the film came on, so I hired Alan Foster, who became the head of effects, but he was more of a CG person. He didn't really draw.
Right.
So it ended up that I ended up, reviewing all the pencil tests, doing all the notes, and approving stuff.
Right.
And I never got a credit as anything beyond an animator on the movie.
Oh, wow.
So when I saw that, I was a bit like bummed. So when they did the next movie and they said, "Do you want to be the head of effects?" I said, "Yes, I want to be the artistic head of effects, and I want somebody else to go to all the meetings and be like an administrative head of effects."
Right.
But this time I want a credit as the head of effects, and I got it on Osmosis Jones.
Wow. Wow.
So on Iron Giant, it took me 15 years to get FX supervisor credit.
Wow. Wow.
Because they did it in the special edition.
The special edition. Wow. That's good. They corrected that problem. That
Well,
doesn't
they didn't correct it. They added it.
Oh.
I got added as the special effects supervisor.
Well, at least they did that, because that doesn't really, a lot of times it does not happen. You know?
Well, yeah, they just added, because they had to add a bunch of stuff, because Ken Duncan was the studio that did the dream sequence,
right?
That finished the dream sequence. The dream sequence was started at Warner's, but it was finished at Duncan
Studios, yeah,
and,
Pasadena.
Yeah. Yes, and I did the effects for it.
Wow, how'd you feel?
Can tell you,
were you proud of the work that you did on Iron Giant?
Yes, but not the follow-up, but like the dream sequence. Yeah. Yes, the dream sequence, because I pre-comped all my stuff and I colored it and I art directed my effects, and I'm very proud of the effects in the limited edition. In the actual movie, I have notes on all my effect scenes.
Wow.
I have notes, and I've even actually posted my notes on social media, what is wrong with the scenes and why it didn't turn out as good as they could have.
Right.
So, but but I don't want to say too much. I mean, like, seriously, like, Brad did an amazing movie on Iron Giant, and I think that movie's great.
It's a great movie. It's a really wonderful movie. Yeah.
And I did the best I could. Everybody did the best they could on that movie. It was,
I'm sure it had a budget limit to things, and they were trying to do things a little bit more economically on that movie. But sometimes when you have those limitations, sometimes you rise to the occasion and you're able to do great things. That's what happened with Secret of NIMH. They only had like $6 million to do it.
The joke that Brad made, I remember at a meeting, he said, after Quest for Camelot, Warner Brothers Animation got out of the animation business, and then we made Iron Giant. Oh, they forgot to turn off the light, and we made Iron Giant. And so I thought that was good. I feel like that's
I think that thing, because of Quest for Camelot, it came in kind of under the radar.
Oh, like it bombed massively. It was like it's one of the biggest bomb of all time. It cost like $200 million or something. It was a huge budget
Quest for Camelot.
Yeah, because they were like ramping up everything and getting all these desks. I mean, it was like a huge thing. They were building a studio.
Right.
And it was a disaster. It was a disaster. And so, I mean, Iron Giant was made with like a fraction of the cost. I think $35 million. I think.
It was crazy.
So it was pretty low. I mean,
and so much more of a movie, and really, I consider it a classic.
Yeah, I mean,
Disney calls everything a classic. It doesn't matter.
Right. No.
They take a poop on. They take a poop on this. That's
classic.
Right. Instant classic.
Instant classic is an oxymoron.
Yes.
And something cannot be instant and classic at the same time.
No, it can't.
It doesn't make sense.
It's funny.
Instant classic.
That's funny. When did Osmosis Jones came in the late 90s?
When I finished Iron Giant, I went on Osmosis Jones, and Osmosis Jones was probably, in all my time in Hollywood, that was probably the best time I've had. Wow. It was great because it was super creative. Mm-hmm. I was given 6 months of R&D to design stuff before the movie started production.
Wow.
So I had to experiment with microbe and microscopic environment and how the doors would open and how things would pulsate and stuff. So just like this crazy time to experiment. And I had like, I was able to hire one assistant.
Right.
And actually what happened with that was pretty funny. I needed an assistant, but they wouldn't give me an assistant. So I said, "Hey, Matt, do you want to work for free? I mean, you don't have a job right now. You might as well just come to the studio and work for free for me." So Matt, my assistant, came to the studio and he got a desk next to me and he's working for me in betweening and I'm keying stuff and
Right.
and we're shooting tests and then suddenly the producer walks by and he sees Matt. Said, Matt, when did you start for the company? He said, oh, I haven't. I'm working for free for Michel. I said, well, we can't have that. That's illegal. I mean, you could sue us. And so he said, come in with me. So they made it legal and they hired him.
Wow.
And he was trying to get hired and he couldn't get hired. I couldn't get him hired, but because he worked for free and then they were afraid that it could be
They
a
get
lawsuit.
sued. Yeah.
So he got hired.
The lesser of two evils. Yeah.
So I told him, I said, see, that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's the way to do it. You just come and work.
Just start work.
And then
Yeah.
you get hired.
Yeah.
So anyway, so
Wow.
so we ended up spending months just doing crazy stuff, like all kinds of stuff. A lot of it didn't make it in the movie. Some of it did.
Right.
But
but some of that stuff leads to other things, you know.
Oh yeah, like molecular fire and all that stuff. Like
Right.
So this is so that was super fun and
That's a real
same
luxury. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't
And
mean to
so
step in on
after that, there was all this pretty much the same effects crew we had on Iron Giant. So
Right.
it was kind of like getting all the old friends back and stuff. So so that was a super fun project. But
Right.
after that, I was pretty much done. With Hollywood, I wanted to do this. I was starting to experiment with book illustrations, comics, and stuff. And I kind of wanted to almost start not phasing off animation, but kind of like having it be a less of a percentage of my life and try to other things and stuff. So that's when I got into comics and
graphic novels and
and
Wow.
and
what's the most favorite graphic novel that you've done since?
I mean, I don't know. I've only done two
Right.
proper graphic novels. I've done like a bunch, but I've done maybe 15, 16 books.
Wow.
But I've done two proper graphic novels.
Okay.
And then I've been part of anthologies.
Right.
But the two graphic novels are Zed, A Cosmic Tale, and the Saga of Rex, which is the one I'm adapting as a feature film.
As a feature film, yeah. How long have you been working on that?
So the feature film I started in, I believe, I'd have to look. It's been years.
It could just be like in the 2000s, maybe.
It's probably been 15 years ago.
Wow.
Like I started. So I mean, it started with. I mean, it never was. That project wasn't meant to be a feature at first. So the way that the whole thing started is this. I was at Warner's.
Mm-hmm.
And my production manager, Scott Greeter, one day came to me and he said, hey, Michel, I love your drawing. He said, have you ever thought of doing a children's book? And I said, I'm not a writer. I wouldn't know how to write a children's book. He said, well, maybe I said, maybe you can write it. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you some illustrations and you start writing a story and then you bring me your story and I'll do more illustrations and we'll do the book like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, okay. So I went right then and there. That's where I created the character Rex. That was the first time I drew it. I just kind of came out of my head. I just drew this thing.
Right.
And I pitted him against this weird kind of creature. And I said, go write a story about that. So
Right.
About 2 weeks later,
Mm-hmm.
I came back to the studio and I had about 12 or 15 more illustrations, all ink, all done. And I said, here,
Mm-hmm.
I give him a stack of photocopies. I said, here's more pictures for your story.
Right.
So 2 more weeks go by.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called him up and I said, Scott, dude, I'm really sorry. I finished the book and it's going to the printer. I said, I just wrote the whole thing.
Wow.
So that was my first book, and let's see if I can find some of that stuff. I might have some of that stuff on the bookshelf.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
so it's got it's a storybook,
right.
And so I did. So that was the first iteration of that character.
Mm-hmm.
So now by that time I start, doing more books. I did I was doing maybe 1 or 2 books a year. So I was doing more of these illustration books, and I was taking a booth at the Comic-Con,
Right.
and kind of becoming part of that scene.
Yeah.
And I was at WizardCon
Mm-hmm.
1 year,
Right.
and this kid come to me. His name is Kazu Kibushi, now New York Times bestseller author, like one of the most popular comic artists in the US.
Yeah.
But at the time, he comes to me, and he was relatively unknown, but he was doing this anthology called Flight.
Okay.
It was for Image at the time, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, Michel, like, I would love for you. I've seen all your book. And so have you ever thought of doing comics and stuff? I would love to do like we're doing this anthology. I would love to have you in the book and stuff."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Well, actually, I have this kind of idea for this big story with this little character I created." And then so I showed him, like, my little character here, and I said that, what about if I do like a graphic novel and I just used Flight that's being published every year to serialize my chapters for my graphic novel. And once this graphic novel is done, then I'll publish the graphic novel. And he said, "Oh, that's amazing. That's an amazing idea. And
Right.
this is what I want people to do and stuff." So he said, like, if you do that, I'll give you the first part of the book. So you'll start the book like every year. So I said, okay. And that's when I started doing the graphic novel. So I did it for 6 years, I think.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I did it for 6 years.
Wow.
From volume 2 to volume 7. So Flight is this. This is the anthology.
Oh wow.
And it's got like all kinds of artists, and I have like the front, like
very neat. This art, the artwork's amazing, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
So
I did I serialized it over 6 volumes.
Mm-hmm.
And once that was serialized, I went to Image Comics, and I said, "Would you guys be interested in doing the graphic novel?" And they said yes. So they published a graphic novel. And once that was published, I think I didn't really have any income at that point. I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to make some money. I said, maybe I should do a Kickstarter. And a lot of people were doing Kickstarters.
Yeah.
So I said, maybe I could turn this thing into a feature film. And so I started like having this kind of idea, like,
right,
maybe I'll pitch an idea and I can price it like for every 15,000, I'll do a minute of animation. So
right.
that was kind of like my idea.
Right.
So I did the Kickstarter, and I was able, so the goal was 15,000. It was 1 minute, but right. I had stretch goals, up to 45,000 or something.
Right.
And I ended up raising almost 60,000.
Wow.
So I did the short film, tried to do it all myself, figure out techniques and stuff, how to do it.
Right. And
once it was done, I put it on YouTube and sent all the rewards to everyone. And literally, like a few days later, I got an email from Belgium, from the company Grid Animation. And they said, we'd be interested in optioning the Saga of Rex for a feature film.
Wow.
So we went into negotiation for about 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And man, we're already at 238.
Yeah, we're almost. Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay. No. So let me just.
Yeah. Well, and then we'll talk about what you're working on now.
Okay.
And,
all right. So anyway, okay, what was I? I'm trying to.
So you got okay. So they Belgian.
Right. So okay.
They
we negotiated, and I said I only want to make the movie if I direct it, and I'm the producer director. So we kind of went back and forth for a while, but eventually it got agreed, and they had to pay a portion of money every year to keep the option going.
Right.
So I stayed within that arrangement for 5 years, and during that time, I had to work for the companies to bring in money because it was fairly minimal for the option. But after about 4 years of that, I finally said, okay, I'm going full time on Saga of Rex. And I said, I want to do the movie by myself. And you're going to have to pay me a full salary starting in September, or I'm getting out of the option, kind of thing.
Right.
So they said, okay, we'll pay you a full salary. So I went on a salary for a year to just work single-handedly on my movie. So during that time, I built the entire animatic of the film.
Wow. So you storyboarded it, you laid it out.
It's all almost rough animated. I mean, I went really quick. I roughed out all the layouts. I mean, I literally fleshed out the whole movie in a rough form.
You are a machine. I have to tell you. You just
I did,
turn
and
the
I
stuff
did all
out.
the score.
Yeah.
So it was the score, and I built all the score using not public domain, but royalty-free music, and
Right.
I literally like bought like dozens of pieces, and I mean this selection process went over years,
Yeah.
where I was selecting music, and I really believe like I had the perfect piece of music, so I cobbled together
Mhm.
like a symphony that's the length of the film, and the whole film is timed onto that music, and there's not one line of dialogue in the film. It's like a ballet from start to finish.
Wow.
So that's kind of like the idea.
Wow. That's neat. What are you working on now? I see. Look, before we get into that, I see 2 awards behind you. It looks like 2 awards behind you. One is directly over your head.
A few more. There's a few more, but the other ones don't look like awards. That's the problem.
Oh, they're just props?
No, they're awards. They're
Oh,
just
okay.
like they're not gold.
No. What's the one above the top shelf there that you have? It's what is it? On the right, on the far right.
This
yeah.
is an Annie,
That's-
Annie Award.
The Annie Award. What was that
Annie.
for?
That was for Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. That's a
Wow.
best animated game of the year. It's like the game that I pitched with. I went in a partnership with a friend of mine, and we pitched it, raised the money, hired the coders, the programmers, and spent 5 years doing on our own.
Unbelievable. And
we won this, and we won the BAFTA for it.
Wow.
So
very neat.
So yeah, so that
very
was
neat.
It was it did good with the critics and stuff.
You know,
in the game world, it's, you know, a lot of people know it, but if you get out of that game geeking world, it's like nobody knows anything about it.
Yeah. Everybody I know that knows you basically calls you like the genius of the animation world, you know.
No.
I sent you an invite, the Zoom invite. I go, a genius interview with genius animator Michel Gagne, and I thought it was but I was ribbing you a little bit, but no, I think the world of you. What are you working on now?
Well, so right now,
I know you can't say a whole lot about it.
I'm taking a break from Saga of Rex. So I've just did almost 2.5, almost 3 years full time of Saga of Rex. So that brings up, I have about a total amount of about over 6 years of full time work on Saga of Rex done. Like full time. When I'm talking full time, like it's like 10-hour days, like 50 hours a week.
Sure.
So I have about over 6 years of that in the film.
Right.
Plus,
how many minutes have you had animated in the?
So I have right now. I have the entire feature is roughed out.
Wow.
I have 41%, 41 minute completely cleaned up in between.
Wow.
Fully painted.
Okay.
And almost all the layouts are roughed out. I would say about 70% are cleaned up.
And you're and it's all you.
Yeah.
This is all you.
Well, I have one in betweener.
Right. Oh, okay.
I have one, and I didn't have him at first, and I'm glad he came because because I didn't have an in-betweener, I was trying to devise method of using of rigging the character and using the rigs to do the in-betweens automatically.
Right.
But I really and that's what I use in a lot of the Kickstarter.
Right.
Which, by the way, now we're redoing all these shots because I want everything to be old school now.
Yeah.
Once I got an in-betweener, the thought of rigging anything went totally off the window, and now I'm doing it super old school.
Yeah, I think it changes the look. It also changes the feel of it changes.
The acting got better, the timing got better, everything. It's like almost the rigging kind of almost made me lazy in a way because I didn't. Now that you have to labor over every drawing.
Right.
The drawings almost take a bigger importance.
Right.
Somehow than just the rigging, which kind of automate the thing. So anyway.
Right.
It's crazy labor of love, but it's getting done.
I can't wait to see it. So I think a lot of people can't wait to see this.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to see it.
So
I took a break.
Yeah,
I'm taking a break right now from the film. So I stopped working on Saga Rex about 14 weeks ago.
Okay.
And now I'm involved with Brad Bird on the Ray Gun with Skydance.
Everybody, I think there are a lot of people excited about this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think they're even more excited about the fact that you're working on it. And
it's going to be good. That's and
so
I think like this is the best relationship I've had with Brad working on a movie in a way that it feels different. It feels like I don't know. It feels maybe because just I'm older or something, and we're older, and you just feel like things take almost a greater importance or something. But I felt more like an employee before. Now I feel like a contributor more, and I want to contribute, and I really want to. I want to make him look good.
Right.
In a way, I want the film to look good, and I even told him, like, when I started on the film, I told him, I said, Brad, for the past years, for many, many years now, I would work on a project no more than 12 to 16 weeks a year. And I would tell that right from the get-go to any company, I'm only going to do 12 weeks.
Right.
Because I have to work on my feature.
Right.
So, but I had to make just enough money to survive. Like if I can do a good rate for 12 weeks, I should be able to live on that for the rest of the year with my wife.
Oh, that's great.
So that was kind of like my thought. Mm-hmm. And that's initially how I was going to go in on Ray Gun. Right. But then I changed the whole thing, and I said, I don't want to do that. On this movie, I want to really participate, and I want to bring something to the table and really like make it like an effects legacy to myself. So so I'm excited definitely about it.
No, I talked to you about this before we actually did the podcast here, and you sounded really super enthused about it, and the way you sound now, really. And look, I think everybody's looking forward to this. The whole world doesn't know about it yet, but I guess we're the people that know a little bit about this project are very excited about it. I'm excited about it, and I wish you all the best.
It's exciting. I wish I could say anything about it, but I can't.
You can't.
And I wish I could show you some of the stuff I've been doing.
I wish I could see some of that stuff too, but
it's cool. And I'm really cranking the stuff quickly, which I'm like, that's the thing. If you keep exercising, like I've been doing on my film, working every day on my film, you get into a project and you feel like you've already been training, so you keep going at the same rate, and it makes a segue so much easier than if you're just like, there's people that I know that they're in between jobs and they'll just be watching TV and just kind of like, which is okay too. That's a different lifestyle. That's okay. But for me, I'm too obsessed with this.
I think you definitely have to relax. But the thing is, I always used to like, I would do my thing. I would come home, I'd relax a little bit, and then I'd get antsy. I'd be like, I got to do something to release this creative energy. And some of that I ended up playing a musical instrument and stuff, and it was fun.
Nice. What do you play?
Guitar.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway.
I wish I could.
Well, it's like anything,
I know.
But you got to put the time. You got to put the time. You got to put the time into it. So it's like
I won't have a life until I'm finished with my feature.
Right. That's right.
And I accept that. It's like it's such a commit. If I had known what I was getting into, I'm glad I didn't, because I would not have done it. It's too much. I would have done a half hour, or a 20-minute film. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I had delusions of grandeur, and now I'm stuck with it because there's too much work that has been put in. I can't go back.
Yeah. Plus, you're such a perfectionist. You want it to be right, and so even if you do something, I'm sure you're going to look at it and go,
and that's the hard part with Saga Of Rex, because we're talking a multi-year project. It's like I go back. It's like now I look at the stuff that's online. That's the Kickstarter stuff, the color stuff.
Right.
It's so horrible to me. It's like I can't even look at it. I'm like, I just want to reanimate the whole sequence.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
That tweening. It's like all I see is the automatic tweening, and I'm like, oh man,
right. Well,
I'm not doing that again. But at the time I didn't know I was going to have an in-betweener, so I had I did it the way I thought the film would work.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's always a point where you have to let it go.
Yeah.
And just this is it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, and I think I'm definitely like essentially for me, I have 2.5 years left of production on Saga Of Rex. 2.5 years full time. Right. And it's going to be done in that time. I'm very good with my deadlines, and I've established deadlines.
Yeah. The goals
repeatedly.
Right.
Goals, and now I've looked at it, and I'm like, okay, if I go at that pace, 2.5 years. So still 2.5 years. That's insane. I mean, when you think like I've spent over 6 years on this, it's going to be like 10 years to do a project like that.
You're an amazing guy. I just want to say that. And you always have been. And I just
somebody asked me to say, what do you think of AI? I said, if I'm doing a feature again, I'm doing it AI. There's no way I'm spending another 10 years on a film. I'm going to prompt my next movie.
Type in the movie information, the synopsis, and let the AI
but no
just do the
AI
rest.
on my movie right now. Like Saga of Rex has to be 100% AI free.
Good.
But for the next feature, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, if you can somehow control it, right?
Well,
if you can control it. Yeah.
If you can educate AI on your stuff, on your style, on your ideas and your drawings and stuff, and it becomes an extension of you, I think that's where I think, there's a bit like, there's a huge fear of AI, which I completely understand. There's a huge fear of AI, but we cannot let the hack dominate with AI. Artists at some point will have to harness AI and learn to direct it, because otherwise they're going to get obliterated by the hacks. I think the people that have talent should be the ones controlling it. And the people that have talents don't even want to have anything to do with it. Right. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there. So I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be interesting.
Interesting. We got to stop it here.
Okay, man.
So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all the great work you've done. And I speak for the audience too. You've done amazing work. Keep the standard. I don't even have to tell you to keep the standards high, because you already do it to yourself. But I want to thank you for doing this podcast. And Michel, I want you to have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, man. And let me know when it's up.
I'm going to let you know. Okay.
Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at Cartoonerific.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
I hope you got a lot out of that interview. I did. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Michel, for doing this show. He doesn't do a whole lot of these podcasts, and so I feel honored that he chose to do ours. And I'm looking forward to all the stuff that's coming in the future. It sounds really exciting and fun. If you haven't already done so, like I said before, we are on YouTube. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a whole bunch of others. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. In this way, you'll always be informed every time a brand new Cartoonerific podcast is uploaded for your listening pleasure. But I'm asking everybody, please go to our page on Facebook. It is the Cartoonerific Classic Animated Cartoons page. And we upload stuff from time to time, and we're going to get more consistent with that. But we'll put videos of interviews, some cartoons occasionally, and also behind the scenes, some pencil tests and stuff like that. So you should really check that out. And please share that to a friend. Let people know about us, because that's the way we're going to be able to grow. And I keep stressing that because it's so important. If you really like these podcasts and you want us to continue to do them, we appreciate telling people and sharing the pages on Facebook and stuff like that. And it just helps us out. And we're not asking for any money. We're never asked for any money on this show. So, and I know a lot of other shows, they do that. But all we're asking is for your support, just general support to get the word out about the podcast. Anyway, I'm going to stop preaching, and I'm going to continue interviewing, and because it is a lot of fun for me, and like I said, I hope it is for you too. So we'll be back next week with another brand new podcast, and if you want to learn who the next week's guest is, and you want to find out early, you can tune into Cartoonerific News on Tuesday nights. And Marjorie is doing a wonderful job with that, and she will let you know who the guest is coming up on Friday. So, if you want a little sneak peek, that's where to go. It's only a 4 or 5 minute show, but please check that out. Anyway, I want everybody to have a great day. I want you to have a great evening. I want you to have a great morning and a great week. And we'll see you all again next time. Take care, everybody.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.